Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress. I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in. This is one of the most important subjects in this book, by the way, is Codeword Barbelon, 666, Danger in the Vatican, the Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination by P.D. Stuart. And by saying that we're going to begin discussing one of the most serious subjects is not to minimize any of the subjects in this book. This book, from cover to cover, is non-stop, hard-hitting information, all of it critical for the understanding of God's people, what this Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order is. There is nothing boring in this book. There's no wasted language. There's no wasted space. No flowery eloquence, just hard-hitting facts and history and Bible. It's the best bang for the buck that you can get if you want to understand the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order. But this particular subject, maybe because it's just important to me, but I think you'll agree with me. You'll understand when we get into this chapter of the book why I regard it so important. Now, what if I were to tell you that Satan found a way, a very, very popular way, to harness the money, the efforts, the labor, the blood, sweat, and tears of God's people, Protestants, to do his bidding on the earth? Now you think, now Tom, that's impossible. How could Satan trick God's people into serving his purposes? Well, we need to be reminded that Paul and Jesus both repeatedly told us, see that no man deceive you. So the deception is the method by which Satan harnesses the power of God's people and uses it for his purposes. What if I told you that Satan had devised a most ingenious way to harness Protestants to do his bidding in this world, to create a global government of Satan, a global religion of Satan, and a global satanic economic system? You'd say I was out of my mind. But did you know that there is at least one entity of this organization centered in virtually every city and town in this country? Satan has indeed found a most ingenious and most popular method of harnessing God's people to his plow. We're beginning chapter 38 of this book, Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart, and it is entitled, How the Illuminati Took Over Freemasonry. And I want you to pay attention. I'm not going to speed through this chapter. I'm not trying to set any records. I'm not trying to hustle through this book. I'm going to spend as much time as the Lord leads me in this chapter. And I just hope that you'll pay attention, because it's critical that you understand what is contained in this chapter of the book. Now, it begins by a quote by Foster Bailey. He says, stage by stage, they assist at the unfolding of the consciousness of the candidate until the time comes when he can, quote, enter into the light, unquote, and in his turn become one of the Illuminati who can assist the lodge, unquote. Now, the body of this chapter begins this way. It says, it is necessary at this stage to reveal how the marriage between the Jesuit Illuminati and Freemasonry was consummated. Now, before we even go any further, we're going to reiterate. The Jesuits were suppressed in 1773 by a papal bull. They did not cease their operations. They went underground. They went underground 3 years later in Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati, a secret society. Adam Weishaupt was a Jesuit priest, doctor of canon law at Ingolstadt University in Bavaria, a Jesuit himself, and he created this secret society. Now, there are many people who say, oh, the Illuminati is just conspiracy theory, it doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. And it's just another name for Jesuitism. It was an underground organization that the Jesuits could appear for all the world to be suppressed, according to the bull by Clement XIV, Dominus Ac Redemptor Noster, that the Jesuits would appear to all the world to have been virtually eliminated. And they simply exchanged their black robes for an underground organization where they could continue their operations. That's the Illuminati. It's Jesuitism. But there was a marriage between this Illuminati, this Jesuit Illuminati, and I don't think it's wise to even use the word Illuminati without the preface Jesuit. Okay, just like it's not really wise to refer to the papacy these days without the preface Jesuit. It's a Jesuit papacy. The Jesuits control the papacy. The papacy is not autonomous. The white pope is not autonomous. He has to follow the direction of the black pope. So it's the Jesuit papacy, and it's the Jesuit Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati could not contain or continue under its own name. You know, Rome's really good at changing names when something is discovered about one facet or other of its diabolical organization. They simply reorganize it under another name. You know, they've taught our corporations to do this diabolical garbage too. Never owning up to their errors, never making restitution, never a full mea culpa. Just reorganize, change the name, and keep on doing what you're doing. Well, the Jesuits are masters at this, and this is what the Illuminati is. And not only did they change their name to Illuminati, they were going to immediately surface in Freemasonry to once again cloak their identity as Jesuits. So right now we're seeing the second layer of cover. First, the Illuminati, then Freemasonry. And what we have is Jesuitism. So, if it's appropriate to refer to the Illuminati as the Jesuit Illuminati, because Illuminati was the underground for the Jesuits, Freemasonry was likewise an underground for the Illuminati. So how is it fair to call Freemasonry anything but Jesuitized Freemasonry? That's what it is. All right. How was this marriage between Jesuit Illuminati and Freemasonry consummated? The reader will recall that soon after Weishaupt's new order was created, he's speaking about the Illuminati order, in 1776, 3 years after the suppression of the Jesuits, he wrote this, quote, "The great strength of our order," this is the Illuminati now he's speaking of, it's Jesuit Illuminati, just a reorganization changing the name, just like our corporations do. "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment." Well, isn't it reorganization changing the name exactly that? Concealment? That's what it is. Its strength lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name. In other words, never let the Illuminati be out in the open. As a matter of fact, if somebody mentions the word Illuminati, you say, oh, that's just a wide-eyed conspiracy theory. It doesn't exist. And never mention it. It doesn't exist. It's just some lame-brained fellow who has too much time on his hands trying to dream up conspiracy theories. Isn't that the prevailing mentality in this country today when people start talking about the Illuminati? Have you ever been in a discussion and mentioned the word Illuminati and take a quick glance around? You'll catch somebody rolling their eyes in the back of their head. The Illuminati, he believes in the Illuminati, he's nuts. Stay away from him. Well, it really exists. Never let it appear in any place in its own name. Never let the Illuminati appear in any place in its own name, but always concealed by another name and another occupation. So what we're talking about is an underground for the underground. 2 layers of cover. With Jesuits, went underground in the Illuminati, which was secret, never to be seen publicly, never to be recognized publicly, and then zip, then into another layer of concealment, this time public. Having achieved its anonymity, having achieved its cover, it comes out in something that is hidden in plain sight in every city in this country. Even the little ones, even the tiny ones. I lived for a while in a little town that probably wouldn't break 300 citizens in that town. But it's got a Masonic lodge. You betcha, it's got a Masonic lodge. So if you happen to live in a town that doesn't have a Masonic lodge, you can bet your hind end they're meeting in the basement in somebody's house. They are everywhere. Okay, the strength of this Illuminati lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always concealed by another name and another occupation. You know, something that no one would ever dream would be involved in the Illuminati activity. Where would that be? Where would that be? Something that's familiar to everybody. Something that everybody has respect for. Something that no one would criticize. They're kind of weird. We don't really want to ask them any questions. We hear they do kind of silly things in their rituals, but gee whiz, they have a nursing home down the street. They got a burn unit down the street for kids. They have the circuses and everything. They raise money for this and that. It's a real charitable, good old boy organization. Who would dare suggest that Freemasonry was a diabolical organization, or worse than that, a Jesuit organization? Yeah, I said Jesuit organization, because that's what it is. It appears everywhere under another name and another occupation. And what is that occupation that now conceals Jesuitism? Charity. Freemasonry. The good old boys down the street. You know, the building that doesn't have any windows in it? Yeah, the charitable boys that for some reason don't put windows in their buildings. But we see them in the parades. They throw candy at the kids in the parades. They have horses, go-karts, mini bikes, clown unit suits. They visit nursing homes. They do all kinds of nice things for the community. Who would dare accuse them of anything, much less being a satanic organization? You've got to be kidding. So the cover's pretty darn good, isn't it? And the author continues, he says, none is fitter, no cover, no other name, and no other occupation is fitter than the lower degrees of Freemasonry. Listen to this. The public is accustomed to it. It expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it. Yeah, it's just the Masonic lodge down the street. You know, we drive by it. We don't pay attention to it. Guess who attends the Masonic lodges? Protestants. Catholics aren't allowed to be Freemasons, or at least they weren't up until, 2000, when the Pope kind of lowered the restriction on secret societies and particularly Freemasonry. Catholics weren't allowed to belong to Masonry. No, this is a Protestant organization. Yeah. The second layer of cover for the Jesuits now becomes a recruitment center for Protestants to do Jesuit business in the world. Shocking? It's worse than that. When you stop to think how many Freemasons there are in this country, and that Satan has recruited them into his organization, you have to ask yourself, how could God's people be so deceived? How could Satan have fulfilled his self-proclaimed prophecy of Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 15, the 5 I wills of Satan, through the efforts of Protestants? Say it isn't so, but it is so. Weishaupt's plan, in his own words, was to conceal the Illuminati within Freemasonry so that it, quote, never appeared in any place in its own name, but always concealed by another name and another occupation, unquote. That's Adam Weishaupt said it, the creator of the Illuminati. It's an admission that the Illuminati were going to resurface in Freemasonry and then be able to do their business in plain sight. I mean, who would ever suspect any crime being done in plain sight? Criminals seek cover, don't they? Well, the Freemasons don't seek cover. You see them everywhere. They're in the parade. We don't suspect the Freemasons because they're out in the open. Great Sun Tzuan warriors they are. They do their diabolical bidding right out in the open, and nobody suspects them. And that was Jesuit Adam Weishaupt's plan from the very beginning. And you have to know that Satan was the author of this. Satan was the author of this. How better to damn God's people than to attract them into a seemingly charitable organization to form the foundation for an entirely Luciferian and satanic organization for the purpose of raising the papacy, the biblical Antichrist, to world supremacy. Nobody of less than a diabolical mind could be so wicked as to recruit God's own people to serve his purpose. Adam Weishaupt. And it says the order of the Illuminati was to be a secret society within a secret society par excellence. Weishaupt himself, a Freemason, and already knowing the inner workings of that fraternity, Freemasonry, was well aware of its potential as a vehicle for the continued operation of his old order, the Jesuit order. For this purpose, he would use Freemasonry, for as he said, quote, our order must always remain hidden, unquote. How is it best to hide something? In plain sight, where no one would suspect it. And in plain sight, in every little burg in America is a Freemasonic lodge that no one suspects of any diabolical behavior. Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati would come to be two secret societies in one: Higher Masonry and Jesuitism, for he was a member of both. He knew how to build this order. And it says the Illuminati hierarchy was not only to be modeled on that of the Jesuits, but Adam Weishaupt would set up other higher degrees within Freemasonry, thereby using Freemasonry as the incubator and the vehicle for the furtherance of the plans of his new Jesuit order. His new Jesuit order. That's Freemasonry. His new Jesuit order is Freemasonry. Now, we read this statement earlier. We read this statement earlier, but it bears repeating. Quote, Weishaupt had hinted to several ex-Jesuits the probability of recovering. Remember, they'd just been suppressed. He told them of the probability of recovering under a new name, the influence which they formerly possessed. Now, what was the influence that they formerly possessed before their suppression by that papal bull, by Clement XIV? They controlled all the governments of Europe. As the confessors of kings and queens and princes and potentates, they had an intelligence system unequaled on the planet. And it was by that intelligence system that they brought the whole of Europe into their control. So its control of government is the main aim of Jesuitism. Now, doing the math, we must equate Freemasonry with Jesuitism. So what is Freemasonry's primary purpose? And don't tell me it's circuses and parades and go-karts and horses and funny hats and nursing homes and burn units for kids. It's government control. That's what Freemasonry's true business is. They get control of the government in order to consolidate power into one man. And that man is the biblical Antichrist. It says Masonic lodges have been completely taken over by the Illuminati, by the Jesuit Illuminati. I cite the words of one of Mason's greatest scholars, Dr. Albert G. Mackey, in support. Quote, to give the order a higher influence, Weishaupt connected it with the Masonic institution, after whose system of degrees of esoteric instruction and of secret modes of recognition it was organized. It extended rapidly into other countries, and its lodges were to be found in France, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Hungary, and Italy. Spread like wildfire, it is a global organization. You're listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a left-behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Okay, welcome back to the second half of Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. If you enjoy Inquisition Update, please support Inquisition Update by supporting FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Continuing the book, Codeword Barbelon, 666 Danger in the Vatican, The Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination by P.D. Stuart. This is book one of a two-book series, an invaluable series of books, 2 books in all, a complete expose of the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order, Freemasonry, all the secret societies, and how they work together to help create a New World Order. A New World Order where Satan will rule supreme in the world. And it's valuable information for God's people to find out how we have been deceived. Our Christ and our apostle warned us over and over and over, see that no man deceive you. And I have to admit to my listeners, I've been deceived about Freemasonry nearly all my life. Never cared to look into it, never cared to be affiliated with it. I'm just like everybody else, just a good old boy organization, charitable people, have a little club down the street. That's kind of weird they don't have any windows, but you know, it's their business, whatever they want to do. It's a free society, right? Don't ask questions. Don't stick your nose in somebody else's business. You just mind your own business. Well, I've just proved to the world you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I'm responsible for what goes on in my life and my community. And I condemn Freemasonry in the strongest possible terms. And I call God's people out from this deception. If you claim the name of Jesus Christ, you cannot serve Satan in Freemasonry. You cannot serve two masters. So saith God in the Scriptures. Repent of Freemasonry. Come out and tell the world the truth about Freemasonry. God's people will protect you from the threats that Freemasonry has issued on your life. Let none of God's people ever swear a bloody oath in a Luciferian society like Freemasonry. You want to serve God with charity? Then do it in the light of day. Do it to glorify Christ and not a mystical, satanic organization with no windows in the dadgum building. You'd think God's people would have more common sense. Protestants serving Satan. That's what it is, to help raise the papacy to world supremacy. They even preach from behind our pulpits. If you've got a pastor behind your pulpit wearing a Jesuit ring, don't even ask him. Kick his fanny to the curb. You wonder why the Spirit is quenched in your church? You wonder why Christ is never present? You wonder why you never grow spiritually? You wonder why these horrible things happen in the community? Why it just seems like righteousness never prevails in the community. All the wrong people are always promoted to the highest offices in the land. Good, God-fearing people are always the tail, and Satan is always the head in your community. That's why. You allow the man of Satan to preach from behind your pulpit, and you're just too fearful. God gave you a spirit of fear. You're fearful of Satan. You're fearful to kick him out of your own house. How do we call ourselves Christians when we are so fearful? We're ready not only to lose our communities, but we're ready to lose our country because we simply will not acknowledge the elephant in the living room. Well, I'm telling you, I'm tired of being milquetoast. I'm tired of being silent and minding my own business when somebody else is destroying my world and damning my children. I want to walk into God's house and feel the Spirit of the Lord all over me again. Kick Satan out of the sanctuary. Kick him out and keep him out. Mark him who bring divisions among God's people, teaching another gospel and another God. That's what Freemasonry is. And this book is going to leave us with no room for equivocation about it. And I'm proud of Liberty Radio Live to let this type of information be uttered on this channel. And I'm honored and pleased that God has called me to this ministry and brought me some listeners who will listen and pray not only that this message continue on LibertyRadioLive.com, but that God's righteousness will be done in His own body. Now, continuing where we left off, page 384, for those who are reading along, I'm going to reread the paragraph that I read just before the break, because it's important. We need to cut this up, and we need to eat it in small pieces, chew it real fine, and regurgitate it and chew it again till we understand it. It's just that important. Masonic lodges have been completely taken over by the Jesuit Illuminati. Isn't it enough that they have 28 universities in this country? They cultivate the cream of the intellectual crop. Every little savant in this country goes to a Jesuit university and they shuffle him off. They indoctrinate him with all this Jesuit equivocation and Jesuit casuistry and the spiritual exercises of Ignatius Loyola. and diabolical teaching, contrary to the Word of God. And then they put them in the most powerful positions in this country. Isn't it enough that they have 28 Jesuit universities and some 300 more centers of education, high schools, and other institutions of education in this country? Is it necessary for them to have a head office in every little burg in this town, in this country? Well, they do. And each one of them ring the bell for a Protestant. Come join Freemason. We're a good old boy organization. We'll scratch your back if you scratch ours. And we'll put you to service. We'll bring you into the light, out of the darkness of Christianity and into the light of Lucifer. Unbelievable, the oath that they take when they first walk into a Freemasonic lodge. The first thing Satan does is make them repudiate Christ. They make them say the words, I wish to come out of the darkness and into the light. What do you find so dark about God's holy word? What do you find so dark about God's church? What do you find so dark about God's law and His charity and His love and His correction? What do you find so dark about your faith that you wish to go into a secret organization? Into the light? The Lord said, let your light so shine before men that they would see Christ in you and glorify God. How are you going to do that in a building with no windows in it? Masonic lodges have been completely taken over by the Jesuit Illuminati. I cite the words of one of Masonry's greatest scholars, one of the greatest scholars of Freemasonry, Dr. Albert G. Mackey, and here's what he says. To give to the order a higher influence. In other words, to give to the Illuminati, the Jesuit Illuminati, a higher influence. Weishaupt connected it with the Masonic institution, after whose systems of degrees and esoteric Luciferian instruction and of secret modes of recognition it was organized. It extended rapidly into other countries, and its lodges were to be found in France, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Hungary, and Italy. And I'm sure that's a short list, because Freemasonry is all over the world. Jesuitized, Illuminized Freemasonry is all over the world. Now let's go back. We have this brand new organization called the Illuminati, an underground for the Jesuits. But we need to give them great influence. I mean, we can't function freely in society if we have to remain out of sight. So we have to be everywhere without detection. So what do? We simply take up control of an organization that already exists, something that's already thought well of in the world, some organization that's not questioned. And then we'll have the cover we need, and we'll have a head office in every little town in this country. What a great idea. I mean, Adam Weishaupt was a genius. They just took over Freemasonry. I mean, after all, it's a Luciferian society. They have a system of degrees. Now, let me tell you what the importance of the system of degrees of advancement in Freemasonry are. First of all, you start at the bottom, the entered apprentice degree. And you're taught esoteric teaching, things that you don't understand, but you think you understand. And you keep growing by degrees, advancing by degrees, and little by little, you're given more and more information. And the driving force to continue into Freemasonry is the goal of illumination, and since the illumination is coming by degrees, you naturally seek to advance degree by degree by degree. But what it really is compartmentalization. And since when one advances from the lower degrees to the higher degrees, he has taken oaths, bloody oaths, that he cannot reveal the secrets of his new degree to those below him. So it's compartmentalization. Now let me tell you what compartmentalization is in a way that you can understand. Because many people, I talk about these things on amateur radio, and people hear that big word, compartmentalization, they don't know what it means. Well, that's fine. I'll define it for you in terms that anybody can understand. Look, if the government said to a group of people, we want to annihilate Japan, we want to kill millions and millions and millions of people with one bomb, and we want you to help us build the bomb, how many of you think would volunteer? Oh, there might be a few hillbillies here and there that, just throw up their arm real quick before they think about it. But when they go home and think about it a little bit, start to look at their little kids and everything else, have second thoughts. Do you really want to just wholesale wipe out millions of people with one bomb? Little kids, old women in nursing homes? I mean, isn't warfare, if it's absolutely necessary, isn't it supposed to be specific? Isn't it honorable to kill an armed combatant rather than just wholesale, turn it into a glass parking lot? Common sense eventually does prevail in the mind. But when you compartmentalize, here's how you do it. You say, we need to win this war, and we need your help. You're patriotic Americans. We want to put you onto a program, a project that will win the war, that will make you heroes for saving this country. And give them each an American flag, or better yet, give them a T-shirt with an American flag on it. And give them a big 4th of July celebration to kick off this new program. And then after you've generated all this interest in this new program that's going to win the war for the United States, you break them up into little groups. There's the compartmentalization. Break them up into little groups. And then you give them the order. No group is to talk to any other group. You've been segregated into your own little group. Within that group, you can operate. But outside that group, you cannot communicate. And then you send one group over here to a little shack with no windows in it, and you give them a set of blueprints, and you build a trinket that you don't even know what it is. I mean, after all, you don't have a need to know. And besides that, you want to protect the country. You want to protect the country's secrets. So you don't want everybody to know what they're making. You're on a need-to-know basis. I mean, after all, you're working on a patriotic project, aren't you? It's going to win the war. See my American flag? I don't need to know what I'm building. I just need to do it right. And here's my little family. Each one of my little family here in this little building with no windows in it. These are Americans just like me. And together, we're going to win the war. And so you get out your blueprints, you wash your hands, you roll up your sleeves, you put on your glasses and your microscopes and your lathes and mills and drill presses and welders, and you pound and pound and pound until you've built this component. And then your boss comes in and says, well, you've got one finished. Let's go out and test it. So they take it out and test it. It was a success. You're going to help us win the war. You're champions in the effort to win the war. So now you've got an igniter. Nobody knows what it is, but it's an igniter. It's going to detonate the bomb. Then you got another shack with another group of people in it building a casing. Big thing. Great big thing. Man, this must be important. It's a big thing. And then you've got another outfit down the street with no windows in it. And they're not allowed to talk to anybody building the great big thing. And the guys in the great big thing aren't supposed to talk to the guy that's building the little thing. And there's some little whirligig things going around. Ain't that cool? What's this stuff we're making? Well, you don't need to know. We're going to win the war. And this keeps going on until there are 30 of these little buildings with no windows in it, and little groups of people that can't talk to one another. All they know is we're going to win the war. And somebody from Freemasonry takes the products of all the little buildings and puts them all together and turns Japan into a parking lot. And then tells you later what they did with what you built. They turned Japan into a parking lot. Little kids, old women in nursing homes, innocent people. Sure, there were some armed combatants, but they turned Japan into a parking lot. Indiscriminate killing. Oh, yeah, we won the war, but we lost our soul. And they didn't tell us what we were doing. That's compartmentalization. And that's what Freemasonry is. No degree of a higher rank can communicate its secrets to a lower degree. Adam Weishaupt was a Freemason himself, and the Illuminati's takeover of the Masonic lodges was seamless. With the Jesuit general already in control of all Freemasonry, the Jesuit general, the supreme commander of the greatest practitioners of the Sun Tzuan arts of war, the most diabolical, the most powerful, the most secretive individual on the planet, the Jesuit general, the Black Pope, was already in control of all Freemasonry. And guess who the Freemasons are? Protestants. Ignorant, blind, deaf, and dumb. Charitable, no doubt. But Protestants. Serving the man of sin and death and destruction. The greatest force of evil on the planet, the Jesuit general. How could it be? I just told you. With the Jesuit general already in control of all Masonry, an understanding was reached with the Masonic hierarchy at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad in 1782 to add the Illuminati degrees on the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. There are the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry for the Goya, the catechumen. It's the higher degrees where they begin to tell you, begin to put you at work building your little instruments, your little diabolical schemes. Never knowing what the men at the top are going to do with everything all the degrees make and arrange and manipulate. All they know is they're doing something really great, doing something really big, probably wearing a T-shirt with an American flag on it, singing the praises of the red, white, and blue, and serving Satan all the time. And going to Protestant church every Sunday, too. Freemasonry, the scourge of the earth. And who do we have to blame? Protestants. Protestants. It says, Nesta H. Webster writes, quote, "It was not until the Congress of Wilhelmsbad that the alliance between Illuminism, that is Jesuit Illuminism and Freemasonry, was finally sealed. What passed at this terrible Congress will never be known to the outside world. For even those men who had been drawn unwittingly, yes, unwittingly, into the movement, just like every Protestant is drawn unwittingly into a diabolical satanic secret society known as Freemasonry, it would never be known to the outside world what took place at that Congress at Wilhelmsbad. For even those men who had been drawn unwittingly into the movement and now heard for the first time the real designs of the leaders were under oath to reveal nothing. What oath? What oath would bind a man of God from not revealing such an ugly, demonic organization? Nothing but a blood oath, sworn to an organization in front of witnesses that have the capability of carrying out and convincing you that they can carry out their orders to kill you if you reveal any of their secrets. What happens when a man casts aside God's law? God told us not to swear any oaths, didn't he? Did you think he was kidding? Look what these men are bound to. They're drawn unwittingly into this organization, thinking it's a good thing, a charitable thing. And by degrees, they begin to learn how diabolical it is until they get to the top and they are allowed to see for the first time what they're really producing. And they're bound by a bloody oath what'll happen to them if they reveal it. So they're locked in. They can't get out. Because to get out makes you suspect. And you know how big Freemasonry is at that time, and you know how powerful it is too, and you know what their capabilities are. You'd be wading around the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean with some cement waders. Nobody will ever even see your bubbles. And so the only way to maintain your own life is to stay in the organization. Because if you leave, you're suspect. Is he going to talk? Not on your life. And it says, one such honest Freemason, the Comte de Virieu, a member of the Martinist Lodge at Lyons, returning from the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, could not conceal his alarm. When questioned on the tragic secrets he had brought back with him, he replied, quote, I will not confide them to you. I can only tell you that all this is very, very much more serious than you think. The conspiracy which is woven is so well thought out that it will be, so to speak, impossible for the monarchy and the church to escape from it. That is, the king and the church, the most powerful organizations, will not escape this. And it says, from this time onward, says biographer Costa de Beauregard, Comte de Virieu could only speak of Freemasonry with horror. With horror! We'll continue our discussion about Satan's organization, Freemasonry, tomorrow on the program. Don't miss it.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.